Everybody knows that Courtney and I love talking about difficult deals. And in this conversation, we talk with Jamie Mixon Cure about how she was able to, during her infamous self-contracted live-in flip, remain a top producing real estate agent. Check out the conversation.
What's one of your focuses for 2025?
Selling my flip.
So that is a great segue. So I love to talk about tough deals. So let's talk about this one. Give us the backstory.
Backstory. Okay, so in we are in 24, 22. In 22, I had a listing that I thought was a amazing listing in rural Covington on 5 acres. It was a referral. I could do a lot of out-of-town referrals from my agents, and it was a listing I couldn't sell, but we had it on the market for about 6 months. But as soon as I took the listing, I saw potential. This was a house.
Because your eyes are trained. Yeah.
I'm always like, oh, should I buy this? Should I buy this? And Gillis hates that. But so it was one of those houses that was built in the 80s, and it was a tiny house. And then they decided 2 years later to do an addition, and then the next year to do another addition and another addition. So it's like
Very blocky.
nothing
like
made
choppy.
sense.
Yeah.
And it was like a maze to get through it, tiny little doorways. I believe when I counted, it had about 50-something doors and like 40 windows. And so, and when I say that, I mean, some of them were double, but still, I mean, it's a lot of doors. And so, like, I just instantly was like, okay, I know what walls need to come down, what we need to do to sell this house. Well, 6 months, nothing.
When it sat on the market, what was the biggest feedback?
The floor plan.
Yeah. And that's something that it's like, you can't change that. Like the average Joe, like for example, you can give like an allowance for painting or flooring, and that's pretty easy. Just go like, fix that. The average Joe is not going to tear down walls. HGTV kind of has influenced a little bit. They probably shouldn't be taking down walls if they don't actually know what they're doing. But the average Joe is going to be too scared to be like, that's a little too much to bite off and take that allowance to kind of like, do it
And
themselves.
I ain't gonna lie, like, at first I was like, oh, it'll be nothing. And like, we just take down these 2 or these 3, but like structurally it don't work like that. Like you got it. You can't just say, well, I'm going to take down this wall. Like you have to really know, like, okay, when I take that down, what other one am I putting up or what am I putting in place? Like all those things.
If this and that.
Yeah. For the last 3 months of having that listing, I begged my husband to buy this house. And he's always like, oh, once we back off commission and blah, blah, like, do the numbers work? Do the numbers work? Well, obviously we're doing price reduction after price reduction, trying to make it work for my client. But I was in the background with my floor plan and my iPad.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out how I can make this house work. And finally, after 3 months of figuring it out, I was like, we got it.
Yeah.
I mean, I met with my framer and my inspectors at the house while it was still in the market, trying to figure out if we can make this work.
Yeah.
And finally, pain versus pleasure, my client needed to go, and the timing was right. And so we bought it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been to the house several times, and it's very impressive what you've done with the house.
You want to buy it? It's for sale.
Not yet. Not the right time for me. But the way that you were able to see the vision beyond what you do with the house. I mean, I remember walking in there and just being so blown away by the fact that the way you moved walls and the key elements of the house to make it work, and building that little apartment upstairs for somebody who needs it in the front of the house, and just the piece of property that it's on is incredible. So, did you have any formal training when it came to that stuff, or you just have the knack for it?
I had no training, and honestly, we've only flipped one other house. In that one, we didn't have to take walls down, just some fur downs and half of walls, and stuff like that. Nothing major. And that one came out beautiful too. But this, I don't even know. I still am in awe sometimes when I look back at it, or I'm like, this was a stairwell, and there's no stairs right here.
Yeah.
You know, like little things like that. My framer was like, there's no way you can turn this into what you're trying to do. Or my husband, no way. The structural engineer, like, seriously, this is what you want to do? And I mean, I got to do every single thing I wanted to do and then some. So that was a perfect segue for me to be like, I'm doing my interior design business because this is the biggest portfolio that I could have to start off the gate with.
Let's talk a little bit about, you've done a couple flips, and you've also got into some development too. So, and these are all not typical things that most real estate agents deal with. So be able to see a vision and have a plan has been impressive. So how do you get inspired, and what is your investment plan for going forward? You find opportunities, or do you have like the type of investment you want to get into? You've done flips, you've done decorating, you've done development. Which one of those are your favorite?
my favorite is still going to be anything related with design, right? Because that is kind of what's fueling my passion. But developing was way easier and more profitable. But I mean, I do know that there is some risk with that, and we did face some of those risks. But it's still not as much of a risk as the money that you got to put into a flip.
Yeah, like I think a lot of people when it I mean, land development, so you know, creating the subdivision, selling off the lots. By the way, pretty cool to have that be like, hey, we have this named after us, right?
Yeah, I wish I
like a
lived
legacy
in it,
play.
but, you know.
Right? And then, you know, the houses that you've improved, right? You know, this one you guys have been able to, you know, so, you know, you put it up for sale. And then let's go back to what made okay, so you completely changed the nature of this house, right? So to where the number one objection was floor plan. And then you went ahead, you listed it for sale. And then let's finish out to what's made it difficult.
So we put it on the market in January of this year.
Of 24,
Of
yeah.
24. And we're still on the market, and it's December of 24, almost January of 25. We knew luxury homes were going to, obviously, they normally always take a long time to sell unless you're lucky. But I never expected this from that one. But I feel like we entered the market at a bad time. So this was right when insurance was going through the roof. I remember getting my first quote on it and was like 20 grand for a year of insurance. And I was like, this can't happen. So
Was that and like, did you guys do fortified roof, or did y'all do?
we didn't
but,
do
like,
a fortified roof because the roof was only 1 year old whenever we got it. So that was the one thing we didn't have to change in the house was the roof.
Yeah. Geez, but nonetheless, I mean, like, and that's the whole thing though too, is that the market does play a role. Talking about like when you had your team was big and then it's come down now, like different things. Something can be great on paper, but it's got to go. The market has to bear the market, and the market has a say in it, right?
Yeah.
And so, but you have, you know, been able to pivot. Some people, I mean, one of the number one phone calls I'm getting right now is like investor rescue ones, where it's, you know, they're trying to, you know, I've had some people who they've had flips and it's not selling, but they had a short-term loan on it, or they've had, one of the big ones is they did the Burr method, where they'd buy it, they'd renovate it, they'd put a tenant in it, and they'd go to refinance. But then now the interest rates are too high, and the numbers don't work, and so they're struggling, right? All these different insurance, all the different factors that's causing deals to not go according to plan. Even I'm not immune to deals not going according to plan, and so, but it's those who are able to like take a look at it, pivot, and say, what can I do to keep moving forward? Basically, to keep swimming,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, so getting that quote for 20 grand, that was like a slap in the face, honestly. Like, we had no idea, because whenever we bought it, they were only paying like $4,000 or $5,000 for it. So, I mean, we knew it was going to go up because the value went up, but 20?
Yeah.
So, I mean, the pivot was, at that point, was to just pay quarterly for right now and requote it. And so we did, and we keep requoting it, and now we're down to 8, thank God.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's better.
So that was a pivot there. Another thing that sucks about it is we're in limbo now, right? Because we have all our eggs in one basket, basically. We're blessed because we don't have a mortgage, but at the same time, we have all of our benefits and profits and everything that we got from doing a subdivision into this. And so we have all these great ideas of what the next step is and what the next business venture is going to be, or the next opportunity.
Yeah.
But we can't jump on any of it until this is gone.
Yeah.
Well,
So-
and part of that is like, okay, so you guys were able to take, so you guys were doing this subdivision, and then, but you took the profits from that and put it into this flip to basically handle the timeline, right? I think that is important, though, to point out that, like, you basically, when one thing didn't work, you said, okay, what else do I have on the table? And you actually had something else on the table that was profitable and liquid, basically.
Thank God.
Imagine
That house
if
would
you
look a
didn't.
whole lot different if not.
Imagine if you didn't, right? And how many agents don't have anything, right? Like if they they've struggled because it's like, well, if I don't, basically they're living commission to commission, right? And so that's kudos to you for being able to say, hey, I have these other things going, that you were able to tap into that. I mean, I think that's a huge thing. I can't tell you how many times when I look at something, I'm like, okay, well, let me zoom out and say, what else do I have on the table? Who else do I know? What else could I come into play here?
And I'll say, going back to the team thing real quick, is, I mean, I renovated this house for 385 days, and I was on site 385 days for 12 plus hours a day, me and my husband. And so, and at the same time, I was still running a real estate business, and I still had clients that needed me. I still managed to close 40 deals that year, which is
huge.
amazing.
Yeah.
But without admin support, transactional support, marketing support, and a buyer's agent, I couldn't have done it.
Heck yeah. That's,
Yeah.
You know, so yes, I still went on appointments and still did my thing, but like having the leverage for all of that allowed
Yeah.
me to be able to do everything I needed to do.